Hey guys, Script Tripper here with another video, and we're talking about Rey now, again. And they just won't let this die. So we've got the Star Wars movies Race for Rey, and the future of the franchise on the big screen. What? The Race for Rey? Who the heck cares? The Scavenger turned Jedi, played by Daisy Ridley in the last 3 episode movies, is key. It's key. Right. No. This is a hard no. Forget the Death Star. The most coveted weapon in the Star Wars movie arsenal is the character of Rey. Yeah. We all agree with that, guys? Yeah. Since the November 7th reveal that Simon Kinberg has signed up to develop and write and produce a new Star Wars trilogy for Lucasfilm and Disney, debate has focused on whether or not it would be a continuation of the so-called 9-film Skywalker saga, tying it to the legacy of Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and storylines first laid out by George Lucas in 1977. The reason for the debate is that the new hoped-for trilogy would feature Rey in some form or fashion. Right. Oh boy, they made such a huge mistake with the sequels. This is where they have to go. I've been saying for how long, you guys? How long have I been saying this? There's nowhere to go in Star Wars now. They've wrote themselves into a corner, and this is the only option they have now. They did nothing with Finn. Ray, I never told you. Why they didn't make him a Jedi, I just still can't for the life of me understand that. That would at least give them some options here. But Kathleen wanted the self-insert to be the absolute poobah. And listen, she could have worked out really well if she wasn't so bloody powerful for no reason. She didn't even need training. Some fans have expressed criticism that Lucasfilm returned to the well to make episodes, as they are called, beyond the 9 movies that comprise the Skywalker story, which had been billed as concluding with 2019's Rise of Skywalker. That film grossed $1 billion, basically, but also wasn't well received by fan base. It received a B+ grade from audience polled by CinemaScore and a 51% critics tally on Rotten Tomatoes. B+ on CinemaScore? Who the heck are these people? But Rey the Scavenger turned Jedi, played by Daisy Ridley in the last 3 episode movies, is key to the franchise's next turn that potentially puts Kinberg's trilogy story development, as early in its conceptual stages as it may be, on a collision course with the Rey standalone movie that is actively in the works with director Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. Is the Hollywood Reporter now doing sort of a preemptive, predictive thing for the audience? Like, are they essentially advertising for Rey being relevant to us? Is that what this is? That feature, revealed with fanfare in April 2023 at Star Wars Celebration in London, is to star Ridley and could have already been in production were it not for some unanticipated headwinds with writers rotating around more than R2-D2's Chrome Dome. Well, no, it's because you only want to rewrite your script so many times, and when they keep sending it back to you and telling you to change it, you look at them and say, well, why don't you just do it? That's the reality. Why don't you just do it, Kathy? You write it. Because obviously nothing we do is going to work for you. That's essentially what it comes down to. A new writer search is underway, so it's unclear when that one would go. Perhaps that is why Lucasfilm was receptive to Kinberg's multi-story pitch, anything to move Rey forward. But it does engender rumors in the Star Wars underground of filmmakers jostling for characters. Ridley told The Hollywood Reporter, I feel like the new ones will be so interesting. Time has passed and a lot has changed for me personally, so I'll be interested to come back to someone who I know so well, but in a different moment. While insiders dispute the notion that there's a battle for Rey, there definitely is internal deliberation within Lucasfilm as to what to do with the heir to Skywalker next. She is the most valuable cinematic asset. Right. In some ways, maybe the only one Star Wars has right now, one source close to the franchise tells The Hollywood Reporter. Yeah, because they wrote themselves into a corner and they made her everything. You know, there's that meme where it says, like, it's like mechanic, leader, knowledge for 3PO, right? The Jedi Knight for Luke, and then the pilot is Han. And then in the sequel trilogy, she's the pilot, the leader, the knight, the mechanic, the knowledge, and Finn is the tolerance, Poe is the dummy, and Chewie is the fan service. And that's exactly what they did, and they didn't make it about the group of them coming together and doing something. They made it so that she was everything. And that is the dumbest thing they could have done. It's boring, and now it's all they have. So all they have is Rey, and Rey as a boring, just crappy character that is basically nothingness. When you give one character everything, they become nothing, essentially. Especially in Star Wars, that was character-driven, essentially. Pedro Pascal's Mandalorian and the Odu like Grogu are Disney Plus creations, and will have their big screen power tested with the feature directed by Favreau releasing in 2026. Yeah, they do kind of have the Mandalorian, but that's like, it's hanging by a thread too, after what they've done with him. And basically just, see, on the one hand, they made Rey everything, and then on the other hand, they diminished the Mandalorian to being a side character in his own show. So they don't know what they're doing. They can't find the balance at all. It's so off. According to sources, Rey is set to play a role in several movies that are being developed, although which ones remain unclear. Star Wars movie development has been under scrutiny for several years, with Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy taking fire for not developing meaningful characters beyond those first created by Lucas prior to the sale to Disney in 2012 for $4 billion. And if the franchise looks forward in its canon timeline, all those beloved characters, Luke, Leia, Vader, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Han, are dead or had their storylines wrapped in prequels or spin-offs. Rey, created in the post-Lucas era, is arguably the only entity with currency on the big screen now. The closet is a little bare. This has been going on for a really long time, and instead of incorporating all the other characters, they've basically completely banked on her, and it didn't work. I'll give you an example. So if remember, they came out with the Skywalker Saga video game, right? The Lego game. When you look at the opening sequence thing, right, when it zooms in on the menu or whatever, in the very first thing, who's at the top? That's who they have been banking on. And what's interesting about that is she's at the top, and then a whole bunch of George Lucas characters are underneath her. There's no one from the sequels. Not a soul. You gotta go all the way over here to find BB-8 kind of off in the corner. All the sequel characters are down here in a clump, and no one cares. Right? Oh, there's Maz over here. And I guess they relegated Lando down here to kind of make it seem like, but look at that. It's all the OT characters that are dead. And then Rey. So they've been doing this. This is nothing new. This was their strategy. And Kathleen Kennedy has had this very strange perspective from the beginning with Lucasfilm that somehow feminizing all these brands was going to work, number one. But not just feminizing them, but completely abandoning every other character, every other possibility, like with Finn or somebody else, or even Ben, now he's dead. Just completely relegating them. So it wasn't enough to have the female leads and all these things in Indiana and Indiana Jones and all these things. And it was, in the case of Star Wars, it was completely remove everybody else from any sort of consequential role in the story. I mean, ultimately, Ben Solo, for example, the only actual Skywalker still alive, all he was used for was to keep her alive. So when you start to look at it, it's just the strategy from the beginning was so utterly stupid. And so now they're going to bank on that? I don't know that any of this is ever getting made. And like I said, it's 5 years. 5 years and it's over. 1 or 2 movie flops, and then they're going to sell. Well, they'll sell in about 10 years, probably. And I just spilled coffee. And the pathetic thing is, not the first time. The pathetic thing is they could easily fix this. This is what's so crazy about it. If their egos weren't so over the top, they could easily fix this simply by coming out and saying, listen, the sequels were a total mess, we're redoing them. But they will never bring themselves to do that. Ever. What the Kinberg hiring lays bare is the development of movies at the company remains its own unique ecosystem in Hollywood. There are numerous Star Wars movies being developed that overlap characters or timelines. They are not related, but whatever one were to come out first could, in a domino effect, impact ones after it. Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie that takes place long before the Skywalkers may be one of the exceptions. Oh, please never make that. Some Lucasfilm directors are aware of what others are working on, while others are not. That's a mess! That's a mess! How are you supposed to keep continuity and lore and all that stuff when everyone's just doing whatever? It's an amateur hour over there. It's unreal. That's unbelievable to me. Unbelievable. For instance, Taika Waititi is working on a Star Wars movie. Yeah, right. Sean Levy has a feature project in the works. Sure he does. And Donald Glover's idea has moved over development from TV to the film side of Lucasfilm. If you remember, the guy who wrote the show, they basically own his script and they're probably going to use it. So that's nice. This is a real nice company that just takes stuff from people and fires them. A Rogue Squadron project is also still in development as a feature. No, it's not. You know what this is, guys? I personally believe. I believe that what this is Disney using the media to do the feeling out process. See how people react on social media to the idea of more Rey movies. And I think the reaction is going to make them realize to never do this. And what that means is they are completely banking on Mandalorian and Grogu. There's no other options for them. They are screwed. They're screwed. They don't have anything. It's a different way of development. It's a different way of development. This is what I'm saying. It's a disorganized mess. It's a different way of development, says another insider familiar with the company's way of working. There's so much parallel work going on. Half the people don't even know what the other guys are doing, so the stories might not even make sense, but it's a different way of development. It also points to the unique nature of Star Wars. To fans, and in this case filmmakers and producers, it is not a brand or a franchise, but something akin to No, it's not. No, it's not. It might have been. It might have been when they bought it, but it ain't no more. Most people, I know, just make fun of it. Unlike Marvel or DC with decades of stories propelling them forward, or even Harry Potter with 7 fleshed out books, Star Wars at its core has been the original George Lucas movies. That is all it is. And nothing has been codified or been made more canonical in modern times than those 3 movies. To filmmakers and executives, the first trilogy is the Old Testament. The first trilogy is the Old Testament. Well, what's the prequels then? You're being asked to create the New Testament, adds one source who worked on previous movies, and no one can agree on anything, and there's a lot of second guessing about meanings. Well, and a lot of times that comes from the heads, the studio heads. You know, they don't agree with what the creatives are doing. Again, we've seen that with, now we've gone through 2 sets of writers for the apparent Rey movie that's now going to be a trilogy, apparently.
Betty girl. Hey, what's the matter? You smell something?
And this is where George Lucas, I think, is sorely missed. And I know he made mistakes in the prequels. I'm not sitting here. I think he didn't have enough people around him in the prequels. I think everyone was so in awe of him that people didn't correct him like the people did in the OT. Even the actors corrected him in the OT with some of the dialogue and fixed some stuff that was a problem. The editing process, obviously, in Marsha Lucas, obviously, some of the other guys around him, Kazdan and some of these guys, held him down a bit from going a little bit too far with certain things. Then he had carte blanche in the prequels, and we saw how bad some of the dialogue was and how he overdid it with the re-releases and putting in all this CGI stuff. Again, it would have been fine to do a bit of that, but he tends to get excited and kind of overdoes stuff. But at the end of the day, when this is what my point is, when people did make suggestions to him, he did listen. He did. A lot of times. But he was also the final say. So the problem is they don't have anyone over there that's the final say, but also a willing listener to other people's better ideas. That's the issue. And that stems, I believe, from what Kathleen Kennedy has revealed to us through The Acolyte, where she told Leslie Headland to tell her story. She allows all these people to sort of put their own take on things. Same with Filoni. Just do your own take. And it's like, no, do a Star Wars take. We don't want your take. We want Star Wars. And so what does Dave Filoni do? He puts wolves and everything because he's all into wolves. It's his own personal thing. And it's not supposed to be about that. It's supposed to be about the lore, the story, and the fans. But Kathleen Kennedy has allowed just this entire... And George, to a certain extent, allowed Dave to do this too. Has allowed this sort of... Do your own personal thing. Your own personal Star Wars. And it's completely backfired. And her personal Star Wars was the sequels with her self-insert that they made into a Mary Sue, and now there's nowhere to go. Now they're in huge trouble. Just stand up, decanonize the sequels, and move on. That's the only way. That's the only thing you can do. Honestly, if they did that, they could save it. If they did that, bring in proper people, remake them, it would be... I think everybody would be super happy with that. Even people that like them, which there's like 10 out there. Even those 10 people would be like, you know what, that's okay, more Star Wars. Another source familiar with the process is more business-minded, noting Star Wars is a nostalgia-based enterprise and they are running out of ways to create nostalgia. Well, because they didn't create any nostalgia, right? They made Luke go out a bum. Han went out a bum, right? Estranged from his wife, all that stuff. They didn't build on what the OT created with those characters at all. You still could have had Han and Leia bickering and all that stuff. It's funny, but have them a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and maybe more mature about it. But they didn't. They didn't build on it at all. They just basically threw it in the garbage. Oh, they're estranged. They had a fight and they don't talk anymore. And then Luke made a mistake and decided to just forget about everything and go away. Yay. So everything he built in his character is now gone and he's someone else entirely. Like Mark Hamill said, he coined the phrase Jake Skywalker. People forget about that. You can't do that. You just can't. You build on them. And then what happens is you write the sequels to where the new characters also have a similar line in the sense that they each have a major role to play. You don't give it all to one character. They each have a major role to play. And then the OT characters pass the torch. They can die and everything. It doesn't matter as long as they go out in a really good way. But they didn't. None of them did. Now, having said that, I understand with the whole Carrie Fisher issue, but their best idea after she died was to make her character quasi-training Rey, but not really, just holding a lightsaber, because Rey didn't need training. So the whole thing was a complete disaster. Just cancel it and start over, but they'll never do that. So what I'm saying is that there would be Rey nostalgia if Rey was written properly. And we would want more Rey, and we would want more Finn, and we would want more Ben, and we want, if things were done right, we would want those things. But actually, they didn't create nostalgia in part as well because they completely rely on, like this person says, it's a nostalgia-based enterprise. It is to an extent, but it also isn't either. There's a lot of prequel characters that people really liked that were new. But in the sequels, they were such a mess, and then they brought back Palpatine, right? You could have had a different villain. You could have had Snoke. There you go. Snoke is Darth Plagueis or something, tying the whole thing together. No, we're just going to kill him. Like, Rian Johnson really destroyed this brand, folks. Like, everything he did in that film really wrecked this brand. I mean, JJ's just as, maybe not just as, but he's pretty close to that as well. But man, the stuff he did. So then what do? Oh, they bring Palpatine back. So then you're relying on old characters instead of, again, passing the torch and letting the new characters become the nostalgia. Nobody wants to see Rey. The television side doesn't appear to have these problems, as several insiders note that that arm has a lot more freedom to expand Lucas's universe, which is why there's been a varied slate that runs the gamut, for better or worse, in the eyes of fans, from Andor to The Acolyte, as well as a corner for Ahsoka creator Dave Filoni, the chief executive officer. I don't know. The ratings have been declining since end of Mando season 2. It's just decline. So I don't think people care anymore. They're screwed. They gotta sell. So that's basically what it comes down to. I don't know how they thought this Rey strategy was going to work. I don't know why they thought all Star Wars fans needed was just this ultra powerful Jedi that can just do everything automatically without training, without even knowing about it. Like, Jedi. Remember when she did the Jedi mind trick, having never even heard about it and knowing the Force existed for like a day? That's the problem. There was no creativity in it. It was just, she's the best and does everything. Remember when she beat Kylo Ren? And people say, oh, but he got shot. Well, he flung her into a tree with the Force. How did he lose to her? And then during the fight, he reminds her of the Force, and then she closes her eyes and uses it and defeats him? Really? A 30-year vet? And she found out about the Force yesterday? None of that is believable. So you took your fans out of the story from the beginning, and then in The Last Jedi, it was like, let's just squat over the fans, right? And completely obliterate their childhood hero, completely wreck the villain. Now we have no villain. Make Kylo just this pouty. He was a little bit pouty in The Force Awakens, but he was such a pouty loser in The Last Jedi, so you couldn't make him the villain in the 9th one because it wouldn't have been believable. They just destroyed, just decanonize it. Just start again. But they're not going to, so it's circling the bowl again. They'll come out with a couple movies, they'll flop. Mando might make a little bit of money. Anything with Rey is not going to make a lot of money, and then they will, in 10 years, they'll sell. for less than what they paid for it. Anyways, let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. It always helps the channel. Feel free to check out anything else on my channel. Have yourselves a really good day.